I woke at 4:30 in the morning on the day of our 50th anniversary party. I hadn't really slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman's face from the grocery store 3 days ago, the way she'd stared at Robert, then at me, then hurried away down the frozen foods aisle before I could ask if she knew us. Robert slept soundly beside me, his breathing deep and even. 50 years of marriage. 50 years of sharing this bed, this house, this life. The party was set for 6 o'clock that evening. Our children had rented the community hall, invited everyone we'd ever known. There would be speeches, a slideshow, a cake with gold frosting. But something felt wrong. Call it intuition. Call it the way you know when rain is coming even before the sky darkens. I slipped out of bed and went downstairs to the kitchen. Our home in Portland had always felt safe, warm. We'd raised 2 children here. I'd taught piano lessons in the living room for 30 years. Robert had built the deck out back himself. This was supposed to be a celebration of everything we'd built together. But that woman at the grocery store, the way she'd looked at us. I made coffee and stood at the window watching the November rain. It was Thursday, November 16th, 2023. In 12 hours, we'd be surrounded by family and friends, celebrating a marriage I suddenly wasn't sure I understood. My phone buzzed. A text from my son, David. "Mom, can we talk before the party? It's important." My stomach dropped. David never texted like that. He was 42, level-headed, worked as an attorney downtown. If David said something was important, it was. I called him immediately. It wasn't even 5 in the morning. But he answered on the first ring. "I've been up all night," he said. His voice sounded hollow. "Mom, I need to show you something. Can you meet me at my office at 8? "What's wrong? Is it the party? Did something happen with the venue?" "No. The party's fine. It's..." He paused. I heard him take a shaky breath. "It's about Dad. Just come at 8. Please, don't tell him." The coffee in my hand suddenly felt too hot. "David, you're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry." 8 o'clock. "Just you." He hung up. I stood there in my bathrobe, watching the rain, and thought about the woman in the grocery store. About the way Robert had suddenly needed to check if we had enough milk, steering us toward a different aisle. About how quiet he'd been on the drive home. Robert came downstairs at 6:30, already dressed in his golf clothes. "Early tea time," he said, kissing my cheek. "I'll be back by 3 to get ready for the party." "David wants to meet me this morning," I said, watching his face. Robert's expression didn't change. About the party? He didn't say. Probably the surprise they have planned. He poured himself coffee. "You know how David is. Wants everything perfect." He left at 7. I watched his car disappear down our street, and something in my chest tightened. At 7:45, I drove downtown to David's law office. The rain had turned into a cold drizzle. The office building was mostly empty on a Thursday morning. I took the elevator to the 12th floor, my hands shaking. David was waiting in the conference room. And he wasn't alone. A woman sat across from him, mid-40s. Dark hair, eyes that looked familiar in a way that made my skin prickle. She stood when I entered. "Mom," David said quietly. "This is Claire Mitchell." Claire extended her hand. I shook it automatically, not understanding. "Mrs. Holland," Claire said. Her voice cracked slightly. "I'm sorry to meet you this way. I've wanted to reach out for years, but I didn't know how." I looked at David. "What's going on?" "Sit down, Mom." David pulled out a chair for me. His face was pale. "This is going to be hard to hear." Claire sat back down, her hands folded in her lap. "Mrs. Holland, I'm Robert Holland's daughter." The room tilted. "What?" "From his first marriage," Claire continued, "to my mother, Susan Mitchell. They were married in 1,968 inches, Seattle. That's impossible." I gripped the edge of the table. "Robert and I were married in 1973. He'd never been married before. He told me." "He lied." David's voice was flat. Mom, I've seen the marriage certificate. Claire brought copies of everything. Claire slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, a marriage certificate, dated the 15th of June, 1968. Robert Allen Holland and Susan Marie Mitchell. A birth certificate for Claire Elizabeth Holland, born the 3rd of March, 1969. Photos of a young Robert, maybe 22 or 23, holding a baby. I don't understand, I whispered. This can't be real. There's more. David said. He looked sick. Mom, when Claire contacted me 2 weeks ago, I hired a private investigator. Just to verify everything, before I told you, I needed to be sure. And? Dad never divorced Susan Mitchell. David's words fell like stones. His marriage to her is still legally valid, which means his marriage to you. The world went silent. I couldn't breathe, which means you were never legally married. Claire finished softly. I'm so sorry. I looked at the photos. My Robert's so young, holding a baby, smiling at a woman who wasn't me, living a life I'd never known about. Where is she? I managed. Susan. She died 2 years ago, Claire said. Cancer. Dad visited her once, near the end. That's when I confirmed he was still alive. I'd been looking for him for 15 years. He visited her? The betrayal cut deeper. When? November 2021. He told me he had a business trip to Seattle. He was gone 4 days. I remembered. The real estate conference, he'd said. He'd come back quiet, distant for a week. I'd asked if everything was okay. He'd said he was just tired. David opened another folder. The investigator found more. Mom, after Dad left Seattle in 1970, he changed his identity slightly, dropped his middle name, started using Robert A. Holland instead of Robert Allen. He moved to California, then to Oregon. He built a new life. With me. I said numbly. With you, David confirmed. But he never divorced his first wife. He committed bigamy. Everything you thought you had, the marriage certificate, the legal protections, the inheritance rights, none of it's valid. Claire leaned forward. I don't want to cause problems. I just wanted to know my father. I tried to meet him at your grocery store on Monday. I'd been watching, trying to figure out how to approach. But when I saw you together, saw how happy you looked, I couldn't do it. That was her. The woman who'd stared. How did you find David? I asked. I hired my own investigator. When I learned Dad had children from his relationship with you, I thought maybe I could connect through family first. David's law firm is public record. I sent him a letter. David nodded. It arrived November 2nd. At first, I thought it was a scam, but she had too many details. Photos I'd never seen. She knew things about Dad that only family would know. Like what? I couldn't stop staring at the pictures. Like the scar on his left shoulder from the fishing accident, Claire said. Like how he used to build model ships. Like his mother's name, Helen. My grandmother. She died before I could meet her. Those were all true. Robert had a scar from a fishing hook. He'd built dozens of model ships when our children were young. His mother, Helen, had died in 1995. What do you want? I asked Claire directly. She looked startled. I don't want anything. I just wanted to meet him. To know my father. I grew up thinking he'd abandoned us, that he didn't care. My mother never told me the truth, that he just disappeared one day and never came back. She raised me alone. We struggled, and he was here, living this whole other life. The anger started then, hot and sharp in my chest. And now you show up the day of our anniversary party? I didn't know about the party, Claire said quickly. David told me this morning. That's why I insisted we meet now. Before you celebrated something that wasn't real. I stood up, my legs shaky. I need to talk to Robert. Mom, wait. David caught my arm. There's more. The investigator found financial records. Dad has been supporting someone in Seattle. Monthly payments, $5,000, for the past 20 years. Who? Susan Mitchell. His first wife. Even after she got sick, the payments continued. They went into a trust for her medical care. $5,000 a month. For 20 years, that was over $1 million. We have a joint account, I said slowly. I would have seen. He has a separate account, David interrupted, under his business LLC. The one he said was for real estate investments. Mom, there are no real estate investments. That money has been going to his first family all along. I sat back down. The room spun. Where does he think you are right now? David asked. He went golfing. He'll be home at 3. David checked his watch. It's 8:45. Mom, I think you should confront him before the party. We need to cancel it. We can't let everyone gather to celebrate a lie. No. I surprised myself with the firmness in my voice. I want to talk to him, but I want to do it my way. Claire stood. I should go. I've disrupted your life enough. Wait. I looked at her, really looked at her. She had Robert's eyes. The same gray-blue. The same way of tilting her head when she was uncertain. This was my husband's daughter. A woman I'd never known existed. How old are you? 44. I'll be 45 in March. 45, which meant Robert was 23 when she was born. He'd been married. He'd been a father. And then he just left. Why did he leave? I asked. Claire shook her head. I don't know. My mother never told me. She just said that one day he was gone. She tried to find him, but he'd vanished. She eventually gave up. And the money? When did that start? After I turned 25. I thought it was from an insurance policy at first. But it came with a note. For Claire. From Robert. That's when I realized he knew about me, that he'd been alive all this time. Guilt money. He'd been paying guilt money while living with me, while raising our children, while building the life we shared. David's phone rang. He glanced at it. It's Dad. Asking where you are. Tell him I'm running errands for the party, I said. Tell him I'll be home by noon. David texted back. We waited. Robert responded. Okay. See you at home. I looked at Claire. Can you stay in Portland for a few more days? I have a hotel room through Sunday. Good. I stood up, feeling steadier now. I need time to think. David, can you help me with something? Anything, Mom. I need to access those financial records. All of them. I want to see exactly where our money has been going. And I need you to find out what our legal situation is. If we were never married, what does that mean for the house? For our assets? David nodded grimly. The house is in both names. That complicates things. But legally, you might not have any claim to it, depending on Oregon's laws. I'll need to research. And the party? I think we should cancel, David said gently. No. I picked up my purse. We're going to have that party. But it's going to be very different from what everyone expects. I drove home in the rain, my mind racing. 50 years. 50 years of lies. Every anniversary, every holiday, every moment we'd shared built on a foundation that didn't exist. Robert was already home when I arrived at 2:30. His golf bag was by the door, muddy. How was golf? I asked, hanging up my coat. Wet. Shot 87. Not bad for November. He was in good spirits, smiling. Excited for tonight? Very. I kept my voice steady. David stopped by this morning with some questions about the party. Oh? Everything okay? Yes. Just details. I went to the kitchen, started pulling out serving dishes we'd need. Robert followed me. Margaret, you seem tense. Are you feeling all right? I turned to face him. He looked exactly as he always did, tall, silver-haired, the man I'd spent 50 years with. I'd memorized every line on his face, every scar, every expression. I'm fine, I said, just thinking about how much things can change. 50 years, and we're still standing. He put his arms around me. Not many couples can say that. I pulled away gently. I need to shower and get ready. At 5:30, we arrived at the community hall. It was beautiful gold and white decorations, flowers everywhere, photos of us spanning 5 decades on display boards. Our daughter, Michelle, had flown in from Boston with her husband and kids, friends, from church, from Robert's golf club, from my piano studio. Everyone was there. David stood near the entrance, his face pale. He'd told his sister something was wrong, but not what. Michelle kept looking between us, confused. At 6:15, after everyone had arrived, after the champagne was poured, David stood up to give a toast. He looked at me. I nodded slightly. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my parents' 50th anniversary," David began. The room quieted. We've prepared a slideshow of their life together. But before we watch it, there's something everyone needs to know. Robert frowned. "David." "What?" "Dad, please sit down." David's voice was sharp. Robert sat slowly, confusion crossing his face. The slideshow started. But it wasn't the one Michelle had prepared. This one began with different photos David must have gotten from Claire. Images of young Robert with a dark-haired woman. Robert holding a baby. A family I didn't recognize. Gasps rippled through the room. "This is Susan Mitchell," David said as a wedding photo appeared. She married Robert Holland in June 1968 inches, Seattle. Their daughter, Claire, was born in March 1969. Robert stood up. "David, stop this. Sit down, Dad." David's voice was steel. "Everyone here deserves to know the truth." The slideshow continued. Marriage certificate, birth certificate, then photos of Robert and me, our wedding in 1973, our children being born, our life together. "My father never divorced his first wife," David said into the stunned silence. "Which means his marriage to my mother was never legal. Everything we're here to celebrate tonight is built on a lie that's lasted 50 years. The room erupted. People were talking, shouting questions. Robert was standing now, his face red. "Margaret, I can explain." "Explain what?" I stood up, my voice cutting through the noise. "Explain how you abandoned a wife and baby daughter. Explain how you lied to me for 50 years. Explain how you've been sending $5,000 a month to Seattle while telling me we needed to be careful with money." Michelle was crying. "Dad, is this true?" Robert looked around the room at the faces of everyone he'd known for decades. "I was young. I made a mistake. Susan and we weren't right for each other. I left. I built a new life." "You didn't just build a new life," I said. "You erased your old one. You committed bigamy. You lied to me every single day for 50 years. I loved you," Robert said desperately. "I love you. That was never a lie. How can I believe anything you say?" My voice broke. "Our marriage isn't real, Robert. It never was. Every anniversary we celebrated was a fraud. Every vow you made was meaningless because you'd already made them to someone else." Claire had been standing at the back of the room. She stepped forward now. "That's Claire," David said quietly. "Your daughter. Mom, our sister." Michelle stared at Claire. "You're our sister?" "Half-sister," Claire said softly. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to cause this pain." Robert looked at Claire, and something in his face crumbled. "Claire, you were so small when I left. I thought." "You thought what?" Claire's voice was sharp. "That we'd be fine without you?" "We struggled. Dad. Mom worked 3 jobs. I wore thrift store clothes. We could barely make rent some months. And you were here, playing golf, living in a nice house, pretending we didn't exist." "I sent money," Robert protested weakly. 20 years too late," Claire shot back. "I was already grown, already damaged by growing up thinking my father didn't want me." The room was silent now. Everyone stared at Robert, this man they'd known, respected, thought they understood. "I'm sorry," Robert said. He was crying now. I'm sorry to all of you. I was a coward. I was a kid who got scared and ran. And then I was a man who was too ashamed to fix what I'd broken. You had 50 years to tell the truth, I said quietly. 50 years to make this right. Instead, you let me believe in a marriage that didn't exist. Michelle came to stand beside me, putting her arm around my waist. Mom, what do you want to do? I looked around the room at the decorations, the cake, the champagne, all of it bought with money that wasn't entirely mine, celebrating a lie. I want everyone to go home, I said. This party is over. The next 3 days were a blur of lawyers and paperwork. David worked tirelessly, sorting through financial records, determining what I was legally entitled to. The answer was complicated. Because Robert had put my name on the house deed in 1975, I had some claim to it despite our invalid marriage. But his retirement accounts, his investments, his business assets, those were his alone. Community property laws didn't apply to a marriage that never legally existed. I'd spent 50 years as Robert's wife, and legally, I had almost nothing to show for it. On Monday, November 20th, David got a judge to grant an emergency separation order. Robert moved out that afternoon into a hotel. He called 17 times. I didn't answer. On Tuesday, Michelle and I met with Claire at a coffee shop downtown. We sat in awkward silence at first. I don't know how to do this, Michelle finally said. How to have a sister I never knew about. I don't either, Claire admitted. I didn't come here to take anything from you. I just wanted to meet my father. You got quite an introduction, I said dryly. Claire smiled sadly. Not exactly how I planned it. We talked for 3 hours. Claire told us about her childhood, her mother, the years of wondering about her father. Michelle told her about our family, about growing up with Robert as a dad, the good parts, and, now, the complicated parts. By the end, Michelle had exchanged numbers with Claire. They weren't sisters yet, but they might be, someday. On Friday, November 24th, Robert came to the house to pick up more of his things. I'd agreed to let him in, with David present. Margaret, please, Robert said when he saw me. Can we talk? David, give us 10 minutes, I said. David looked uncertain, but left us alone in the living room. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, Robert began. I know what I did was unforgivable. But please believe me when I say I loved you. I love you. These 50 years with you were real for me. They weren't real, I said. You can't build something real on a foundation of lies. I was 24 when I left Seattle. I was terrified of being a father, of being trapped. Susan and I fought constantly. I thought if I just left, started over, I could be different, better. Were you? I asked. Better? He was quiet for a long time. I tried to be. I thought I could outrun my past. I thought if I just never looked back, it would be like it never happened. But it did happen. You had a daughter. She needed you. I know. I started sending money when I finally faced what I'd done. But by then, Claire was grown. The damage was done. Why didn't you tell me? This was the question that haunted me. When we met. When you proposed. When we got married. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Because I was a coward. His voice broke. And because I was afraid of losing you. By the time I realized how wrong I was, we had children. A life. I didn't know how to unravel the lie without destroying everything. So, you just kept lying. Yes. I looked at this man I'd spent 50 years with. I saw a stranger. I'm filing for an annulment, I said. Or whatever the legal equivalent is when a marriage never existed. David's handling it. What about the house? David says I'm entitled to half, maybe more, given the circumstances. I don't know yet. You can have all of it, Robert said quickly. The house, the investments, everything. I don't want to fight you. It's not about the money, I said, though part of me knew that was a lie. I'd worked, sacrificed, built this life too. I deserved something. It's about the fact that you stole 50 years from me. Years I can't get back. Years I spent believing in something that wasn't real. Our love was real, Robert insisted. How would I know? I asked. How would I ever know what was real and what was another lie? He had no answer for that. On December 15th, the judge granted the annulment. Legally, my marriage to Robert Holland had never existed. I was awarded the house, half of his retirement account, and a monthly support payment, not alimony, since you can't pay alimony for a marriage that wasn't valid, but rather restitution for fraudulent misrepresentation. Robert didn't fight it. He signed everything David put in front of him. Claire stayed in Portland. She got an apartment downtown, started looking for work as a graphic designer. Michelle flew back to Boston, but called Claire once a week. They were building something slowly, carefully. On Christmas Eve, Claire called me. I'm sorry, she said. I know this is probably weird, but would you like to have coffee sometime? I'd like to get to know you, if that's okay. I thought about it. This woman was as much a victim of Robert's lies as I was. Maybe more. I'd like that, I said. We met the day after Christmas. Claire brought photos of her mother. Stories about growing up in Seattle. I told her about Robert's parents, about the family history she'd never known. He wasn't all bad, I found myself saying. As a father to David and Michelle, he was present, loving. He coached Little League, helped with homework, showed up to every recital and game. That makes it worse, somehow, Claire said. Knowing he was capable of being a good father, just not to me. I'm sorry, I said. For what he did to you. For what he took from you. You lost more than I did, Claire said gently. I never had him. You had 50 years and then found out none of it was what you thought. But that wasn't quite true. I'd had 50 years. I'd raised 2 beautiful children. I'd taught hundreds of students to play piano. I'd built a life. Maybe the foundation was cracked, but the life itself had been real. Do you think you'll ever forgive him? Claire asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks I already have. Because holding on to anger is exhausting. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean what he did was okay. No, Claire agreed. It doesn't. On New Year's Eve, I sat alone in my house now, legally mine, and thought about the year ahead. I was 68 years old. I'd spent 50 years with a man who'd lied to me every day. But I'd also raised 2 children who loved me. I'd built a career. I'd made friends, created music, lived a life. Robert had stolen the truth from me, but he hadn't stolen my life. At midnight, my phone rang. It was Michelle, David, and Claire all on a group call, shouting, Happy New Year. They'd planned it together. I had 2 children, and now, somehow, I had 3. In February, Claire brought her girlfriend, Jenna, to meet me. We had dinner at my house. Jenna was funny, smart, and clearly loved Claire deeply. Your daughter is amazing, Jenna told me as we cleared dishes. My daughter, I repeated. The word felt strange but also right. If that's okay to say, Jenna added quickly. It's okay, I said. And it was. Robert called sometimes. I didn't always answer. When I did, we talked about practical things, taxes, insurance, the last of the financial separation. He asked about the kids. I kept my answers brief. Do you hate me? He asked once. No, I said honestly. I think I'm past that. I'm just sad. Sad for what we could have been if you'd been brave enough to tell the truth. Me too, he said quietly. In April, on what would have been our 51st anniversary, I didn't cry. I planted a garden instead, tomatoes, peppers, herbs. Claire came over and helped me dig. We worked in companionable silence, our hands in the dirt, building something new. Thank you, Claire said as we finished. For what? For not hating me. For not blaming me for ruining your life. You didn't ruin my life, I said firmly. You told me the truth. That's a gift, even when it hurts. She smiled, and I saw Robert in that smile. But I also saw Susan, a woman I'd never known but who'd raised this kind, brave daughter. In June, I started teaching piano again. I'd stopped after the anniversary disaster, too raw to face students and questions. But music had always been my solace. My students came back, some tentatively, some with fierce loyalty. On July 4th, David hosted a barbecue. Michelle flew in with her family. Claire brought Jenna. We all gathered in David's backyard, and for a moment, watching my children, all three of them laughing together, I felt something close to peace. "You okay, Mom?" David asked, sitting beside me. "I am," I said, and I meant it. The truth had shattered my life. But from those pieces, I'd built something new, something real this time, something mine. Robert sent a letter in August. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. "Margaret," it began, "I know I have no right to ask for anything from you, but I wanted you to know that I've started therapy. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did, why I ran, why I lied. I'm trying to be better, even though it's too late to fix what I broke. I hope you found peace. You deserve it. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. Robert." I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd want to read it again. Maybe not. In September, Claire asked if she could move into my spare room temporarily while she saved for a house. I surprised both of us by saying yes. Living with Claire was strange at first. She had Robert's mannerisms, the way she hummed while cooking, the way she read the newspaper. But she also had her own light, her own kindness that had nothing to do with him. "Tell me about your mother," I said one evening as we sat on the back deck. Claire's eyes softened. "She was strong. She had to be. She never remarried. Said she couldn't trust anyone after Dad left. She worked herself into exhaustion to give me a good life." "She did give you a good life," I said. "You're remarkable, Claire." "She would have liked you," Claire said. "She would have been glad to know that Dad built something good, even if it was built on lies." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the Portland sunset paint the sky orange and pink. In October, exactly 1 year after Claire had first contacted David, we gathered at the community hall again, not for a party, but for Claire's birthday. It was her idea to have it there, to reclaim the space, to turn a place of pain into something new. Robert wasn't invited. That was my one condition. Claire understood. Michelle made a toast. "To my sister," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry for the years we lost. But I'm grateful for the years ahead." Claire wiped her eyes. "To family," she said, "the one we're born into, and the one we choose." I raised my glass. "To truth," I added, "even when it costs us everything." We drank, and somewhere in that moment, I realized I'd forgiven Robert. Not because he deserved it. Not because what he did was okay. But because I deserved to stop carrying the weight of his mistakes. I was 69 years old. I'd lost 50 years to a lie, but I still had years ahead. Years to spend with my children, all of them. Years to teach music, to garden, to build a life that was wholly mine. The truth had destroyed the life I thought I had, but it had also set me free to build something real. And in the end, that was worth everything.